Today's sponsor of the Vision Quest podcast is 920 Hat Company. Leather patch hats are in, and 920 Hat Company is here to hook you up with your very own custom hat. All patches are lasered on top-grade genuine leather and on popular brand hats like Richardson and FlexFit. Whether you're looking to show off your business or want a one-of-a-kind hat for yourself, 920 Hat Company can do it all. All the hats are handcrafted right in the Fox Valley, but worn across America. With over 500 hats in stock, they guarantee fast turnaround times. Honestly, Liam, looking at these hats, solid, right?
Yeah, they're pretty. I like them.
I like that patch itself.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, one-of-a-kind stuff. I know his name's Trevor. He does great work. He's actually gotten I think we got a knit hat coming.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, we got that coming. So we're really excited to have these guys on board as a sponsor. So get down to check them out on Facebook. I believe they're on Instagram. Check them out, man. They got the best hats, I think, in the Fox Valley, if not in the state.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So get down to 920 Hat Company on social media and check them out. All right, we are back for another episode of the Vision Quest podcast. I am Brad. I am the host, and we are joined here for part numero dos with none other than the Wisconsin Wrestler Podcast, Steve the Stilts Leurquin. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing good. That nickname you gave me is kind of sticking. So, speaking of stilts, have you seen Kale Leesgang from Seymour?
Oh, can I comment on this for just a minute? Because I don't know that there's a guy that could climb up that kid's legs and still take him down. Huge.
So I was doing the Battle in the Bay broadcast with Ryan Wellnuts, and I didn't realize the Seymour coaches were sitting right next to me. And all of a sudden, Kale comes walking by me, and I'm sitting in a chair, and I look up, and I go, holy cow, how tall is that kid? And the coach just nonchalantly turns to the left, and he looks at me, and he says, well, he was 6'8" last month, right?
Oh,
last month, because keep in mind the kid's a sophomore, right? So he might get a couple more inches.
Mind blowing.
That's here we are. Now I know why you needed a part two and why I talked so long, because here we are. You didn't do the intro. And by the way, how many two parts do you need ever for a podcast?
Man, I'll do them all the time. I love repetition. Repetition makes you better at stuff, right?
Well, the last time it was the technology, the 9 o'clock and something, the internet turned off in the school here or something. And but I'm telling you what, Brad, I'm convinced that I am a curse to technology. So if you want technology not to work, just get me around it. And that's what will happen.
It's lights out. Like,
then I should become a spy, and they should infiltrate me into some country and have me start working on their computer systems, and the whole thing will just flatline. That's the way it is.
Done. Well, and you be careful because you're about to get hit by a tornado. It sounds like over there.
Yeah, my phone goes off. Everybody, did right before Brad and I were talking. We're getting Greene County, which is just we're kind of next to Jefferson Rock, just the county over to our left. Below Madison is Greene County-ish, somewhere around there. So
dedicated. You're a dedicated guest. I appreciate
that. That's right. I'll take shrapnel through the window here for you guys.
That's awesome. So, Steve, when we were talking, we talked about some of the earlier years with you where, just starting out and kind of we're getting through college, we're getting to the end, and you were kind of talking about, lacrosse. Lacrosse stuck out in your head a lot as far as the last hurrah of wrestling, I guess we'll say, competition-wise for you. When you were coming to the end, you were talking about how you felt like you were just kind of like you were. I think the comment was, I was just done. I realized then I was done competition wise, right? Because we're starting to kind of sound like we're getting into coaching.
Yeah. The big thing was, I think I mentioned, it was kind of like, so I wrestled D3 college, right. Which is still amazing, but yet you realize that you have lives, and I was about ready to student teach. I just met my wife, the love of my life. Right. That wasn't my wife at the time. And, and I think what happened was, even though I still had the passion for wrestling, I was starting to realize that the next phase of life is beginning, right? I was student teaching, which kind of takes us into our coaching. Before I do that, I just wanted, I talked this before we got on the show, is really I want my message of my college career to anybody listening is that if you have the heart and passion to wrestle at the next level, take your high school career and don't look at it. Because I was not a very good high school wrestler. Obviously, at my senior year, I had some good development, but I didn't come physically to most. I know it's hard for kids nowadays because you see so many freshmen coming in and they're just studs, right? And then, oh man, those kids are going to go on, but sometimes it doesn't work out. Like I said, in the practice room, I remember state champ after state champ sometimes coming in. Those kids are sometimes the first ones to wash out, and at the D3 level, right? And so I just want people to know that, hey, if you have the passion to do it, keep working hard and do it, and you can, right? And especially like I said, at that D3 level, maybe not the D1 level, but it's still, there's opportunities. I see every now and then. I'm watching Shane Sparks talk about this kid. And, I don't know this for sure, but there was a Northwestern kid that I just called the action for, and I couldn't find any accolades on him. And there he's wrestling for Northwestern, he's in the starting lineup. So it can happen. But, with that being said, I think that was, I didn't really get burnt out per se. I just started to realize like there was a transition in my life happening, and the next phase was about ready to start. And part of that was, family and getting married and getting a teaching job. So
you're growing up, man. I mean, and everybody has it, you make a decision in life, what you want to do and what you really want to do. I mean, you place a value on it, right? Something's always got some type of value to you, at least anyways. So with that being said, I don't think it didn't sound like that you were necessarily ready to get out of wrestling. Like you said, you weren't like burnt out and had to cut yourself off. Like you just tried to make the Olympics and stuff like that. You were just kind of tired, right? So did you take a break? Was there a little bit of time in between where you're just doing whatever?
The great part about it was that you'll like this transition is that, so I started teaching at Waukesha North. And so basically I kind of made the decision. I was done. I kind of went to a few practices and then I was done and, didn't go out. And then, student taught at Waukesha North High School and got this is kind of a cool story is I met my cooperating teacher I was going to be working with, and then I looked at him and I said, hey, what, if I could, I'd like to help out the wrestling team. And he just gets this big smile on his face, like kind of a oh man, I can't swear in here, but just a grin that's like, look, something's wrong here, not wrong, but wrong in a good way. And he goes, I'm going to introduce you to Greg Pakowitz. He walks me right down the hall, the Greg Pakowitz, who's a great guy. Greg has done a lot for me in coaching, still has, and I see him every now and then. He was the head coach of Waukesha North, and he walks me in. So Brad Mossman walks me in, and he goes, hey, Greg, this is Steve. He's going to be one of our cooperating teachers this year, wrestle at Whitewater, and he wants to help you out with wrestling. And all of a sudden, Greg Pakowitz just gets this big smile on his face. And all of a sudden, he literally looks at me and says, yes, I never have to wrestle with Ian Berg again. And if you go back, if you look, Ian Berg for Waukesha North ended up being a state runner-up, lost in a heartbreaking last-second takedown. Ian Berg looked like he was chiseled from granite. He just like, if there's a magazine muscle, and It was awesome. It was a great relationship. Ian and I, we figured it out at that time. I'm 21 years old, right? And Ian Berg's 18, right? So we got along. We got along pretty well. And
nice.
We got to wrestle together and stuff. And him and Frank Wade and Spencer Dominguez was on that team. There's just some guys that were, But that was a great experience. But for Greg Pakowitz taught me a lot. I learned how to be started my wrestling coaching career, and it's kind of funny. I got to learn how to student teach and student wrestling coach, right?
Well, I mean, I was just going to ask about that. Now, obviously, you had the wrestling experience, but what was that like for you going from the competition part to? I mean, not boom instantly, but then you're jumping right into the coaching. Did it feel natural?
Yeah, I did. I mean, because I coached before. Like I would go back with Bill Verbaten and Matt Verbaten, and I'd coach with the little kids and stuff. And I've always had like a coaching. Even when I was a wrestler, I was still coaching kid. You know what I mean? Like you're kind of that team captain role where you're the extension of the coaching staff. So I've always had that mentality.
Okay. So you're coming into your first season. Obviously, you got sounds like what's going to create a tight core, of coaches. How long were you guys all together?
You are talking as far as
who you originally started with? How long were you guys together coaching?
At Waukesha North, just for that year. I mean, so I basically was with them from Christmas on, and then after I graduated, I was then I moved on. Then I moved on to I taught 1 year at Kimberly, and I was the assistant coach with Chris Runquist.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember that name or not, but he was the head coach, and I had an okay experience there. I don't have anything. I learned a lot from Chris, great guy. And then it was so my wife. I would say she's a Southerner, right? She's a Southerner of the Wisconsin. She lived in Waterloo, Wisconsin, and we moved up. Got married, moved up to the Green Bay area, and she got she taught at Luxembourg Casco. I taught at Kimberly. We lived in the middle in the Howard, the Green Bay area, and she got really homesick. And I tell you what, as a man, you do what you got to do to make your wife happy. And so we moved. We started looking more in the southern part of the state.
Well, you learned that lesson pretty quick because some guys don't learn that lesson for quite some time when it comes to marriage.
I did. It's funny you say that. I was just having a talk with my daughter about, there's whatever. I won't go too far into it, but somebody I'm teaching is having a hard time with their relationship, and I'm just like, you know what? I don't like. I'm such a great wife, by the way. And just a great marriage. It's almost like hard for me to, I feel so sorry for people that don't have, I shouldn't go too far into that because I know that's a sensitive area, but I really, when they say I married up, I really did. And I always think about that. The bad news is if I married up, what happened to her?
Yeah,
definitely married down, but yeah.
So with coaching, what was your most memorable experience your first year?
Do you mean as
your first year coaching when you as an assistant, whatever? What was the most memorable moment that year?
Yeah, so I would say, I'm going to take it for my student teaching year coach. It was just, it was the, I just like those three guys that I mentioned, and there's others. I wish I could remember their name, but I think it's just the camaraderie, right? Yeah. The camaraderie. Obviously that would be the overall the memory, but my memory is just. Going to tournaments and, just being with the guys, like when we qualified those three guys. And then another one, I cannot remember his name, but just being at the state tournament with those guys is probably, one of those memories. And, but I will tell, it just came to me is that, Ian Berg's parents, when we had the banquet, they were so appreciative, and they gave me this inflated or this I'm going to say gold plated. It wasn't gold, right?
Sure. Whatever.
But they gave me this really nice pen.
Yeah.
And they handed it to me and they said, Steve, this is your pen that you can sign your first teaching contract with. And I was like, that to me just meant a lot.
That's pretty cool. Yep. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So as you said, you guys moved back up here in the Fox Valley.
Yep.
Where did your coaching pick up here?
Yeah, at Kimberly. I had 1 year at Kimberly. Yep.
So that's right, with Runquist. So how did that go? What was that assistant coach? Like how did that situation go for you?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, it was
was that 1 year?
1 year. Yep. Chris Runquist, like I said, great guy. We had great kids. I think we were in, and the conference, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we had one win. We had one tie. I think we tied Menasha, and I can't remember who we beat. And then
ties. What's that?
I know it doesn't happen anymore, right? But we had really good kids. They worked hard. I don't think we had any state qualifiers that year, if I remember. But I will tell you this, and it just so happens, you're from Kaukauna. I just remember I was a passionate coach. Like, I don't care. I want to say this the right way because I think sometimes people take it the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
Like they say, oh, it's okay to lose, right? Just try your hardest. Like, I think people use that as an excuse. I don't care if my kids lose, right?
Yep.
I want them, and not for wrestling.
Right.
I want them to, like, when they're, and here I'll go into this, is that, like, if I have a kid and he's wrestling a state champ and he really, let's be honest, does he have a shot? Yes, he does.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, if a kid's going to wrestle Coy Hopkey, does he have a chance? Yes, absolutely he does, right? You got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Not a very good one, but you better go. And I just want my kids to go out there because life's going to grab you by the throat sometimes, and you got to fight, right?
Yeah.
And those Kimberly kids, I remember that year as we went to Kaukauna, and I wasn't like, I'm walking into Kaukauna, and Kaukauna like, just, they're not even where they are now. They're just
starting to kind of make that. Yeah. Yep.
And I'm still, like, I'm 22 years old at this time, 20, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I'm the whole week long, it's freaking, we're battling. I remember just pacing around with those kids, and I'm looking, and I think part of that, I'm getting the chills talking about it. Part of it is looking those kids in the eyes and them believing that you're out on the mat with them.
Yeah.
And I was so proud. I mean, we got killed, but every single one of those kids freaking fought so hard. And it was like, we had a couple matches that were tight, and the Kaukauna fans are yelling down. And, I probably did some things I shouldn't have, whatever, but you're young. And that was fun. Like, when they came off, even though the score, I'm just going to say, was 60-12. I don't know what it was.
Right.
Those were the bus rides home when you get back in the locker room where you're like, I'm so freaking proud of you, and it's like, and you're frothing at the mouth because you're pumped at them. So,
and you back then, I mean, you got piss and vinegar left in you, right? And you have a passion for these kids to want to win. Like, so I kind of understand what you're saying, because I'm, as a dad, I mean, I've coached Liam since he was 5, but now, like, I wasn't worried about technique once we got into like middle school. I wasn't showing him that stuff anymore. So I wanted 110%.
Right.
Because that's genuinely, that's really all I can ask of him, that he can produce instantly and all the time. Whereas a move, maybe not. So I'm not going to be like, you got to do a blast double. I'm going to tell him, I want 110%. I want to see you go out there. And if it's something you want bad enough, die for it. Breathe, just die for it. And that sounds like you looking at those kids, that's kind of what you're putting into them. So that's awesome. Yep. That's awesome. So you had the 1 year in Kimberly. What happened after? Where'd you go after that?
Yeah, well, then that was the kind of the next step, and I don't want to say only step because I've been coaching off and on since. But my main gig was at I got a teaching job in Cambridge, and as a 23-year-old, I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but 23-year-old became the head coach at Camberley.
Nice.
Camberley. I just said Kimberly.
Camberley joined
Cambridge High School. Holy cow! Where the heck is that coming from?
It's awesome. It's awesome. So you're the head coach. You got the position.
Yeah.
What I think about now, just because like going to USA Wrestling, you got to take your coach's test, stuff like that. And you can see that next level, what you got to do to coach. Now, I don't know what you got to do in the state of Wisconsin and high school, especially at that time.
Right.
What are you thinking? You've been through a couple coaching processes now and seen a couple different guys. Did you group a little bit of what you learned from those guys together to kind of put a game plan together?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I learned a lot from Chris as far as relatability, Greg Packwitz, but my main influence was Bill Verbatim, right? I mean, Bill at Right Out. It's like he epitomized, if that's the right word, he embroiled team, right, and team concept, so that's as far as experience. I think at that time it was pretty much just fog a mirror. I could fog a mirror, and you're the head coach. But if you ask, like, if you got Bill or Matt, I know you see Matt quite a bit. If you ask them every day, I'm always like, Bill, I'm going to take off. That time Mishicot was in our conference, and they were, a pretty good program now, but at that time they were bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
And I would go, Matt, I'm going to take over Mishicot, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to, and I'd talk about all these things, and they just, they snicker, they believed it. Right. And I didn't mean Mishicot per se, but I meant a program like that. I didn't want to go, with all due respect, I didn't want to go to like a Kaukauna, or, I didn't want to go to a program that was already established. I'm going to take a program that was down here.
Yeah.
And rise them up. And really, Cambridge was that opportunity because it was very similar to Mishicot. They were, a little bit down their luck. They had low numbers, and kids really weren't. I was just different. I was different than what they were used to. Let's just say that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and so the other thing is too, is like I said, you still have that passion, right? So you kind of, it was almost like you kind of smacked the team in the mouth and like, whoa, hey, what's going on? There's a guy like this. And I mean, honestly, that's a motivator, right? I mean, if the kids are out for wrestling, they got to understand that there's going to be some hard things coming their way, sure, whether it's push-ups or something. But if the coach has energy and it's, like you said, you learned relatability and you already had the energy to do it. So it sounds like you had, the fixins to kind of make some noise. So do you remember your first duel?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about your first duel.
It's funny because they're very memorable, right? Well, let me go back a little bit. So I go, so I'm teaching in Cambridge and I go I have to go to the clinic in Cambridge to get a physical through the school.
Okay. Yeah.
And I walk in and this lady, and I won't say her name. I just still know her last name. She goes, "Oh, Leurquin." She goes, "You're the new wrestling coach." And I'm like, "Yes, I am." Yes. I'm like, "Don't you know?" Yeah, here I am. I'm thinking, yes, they already know me. She looks at me and I go, "Oh, yes, I am." And she looks at me. She goes, "I don't like wrestling." I'm like, welcome to Cape, right? I mean, here we go. Cambridge is not known for their wrestling, right? So,
right.
But my first year we had, I don't know how many they had the year before. It wasn't a lot. It was less than 10. And then I got 18 kids out, and I kid you not, of the 18, probably only, I want to say 12 had ever wrestled before, right?
That's great. Hey, that's all right. That's all right.
It is because I could shape them and I could mold them. And I ended up having like 7 or 8 freshmen that year that ended up being, that core group that we had, that
nice.
built up on. Nice. But my first duel, we had a full team, 13 weight classes, full team.
Nice.
Really proud of that.
Yes.
And because at that level, right, in the conference we were in, that level, you have a full team, you can win some duels. So I'm all excited. We're wrestling Houstonford, right? Houstonford and Dan Simon, great guy, always has great individuals, not a lot of numbers. Yeah. Hey, Steve, I'm going to fax you my lineup. He faxes me my lineup or his lineup. I look at it and they have 3 wrestlers, right? So I'm like, hey, I'm 1-0. We already, 1-0 as a head coach. We already got this duel one, right? And I still remember we win the duel. My parents, now keep in mind, my parents were used to going to Wrightstown matches, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And pretty full gyms and all that kind of stuff. My parents drive down from Wrightstown to Cambridge. They walk in like 5 to 7. There's maybe, I'm going to say negative 10 people in the bleachers, right? And can't believe that. And we start the duel at 7, exactly at 7. At 7:10, we're done.
Wow.
We shake hands. I turn around. There's a mom from one of our wrestlers, and I won't say who it is.
Yeah.
And this was he was a senior. He was a first-year kid. She had no idea what wrestling is. She meets me center mat right after I shake hands with Dan Simon, and she's yelling at me that she wants her money back because she just paid, and she only got this. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what is going on here? Right?
Here's $4. Relax. Here.
I had no idea. I was so floored because I'm thinking, everybody's gonna be so happy. Like, because I remember one of my kids went to not that duel, but the next duel a big duel we had with Waterloo, ended up beating them for the first time in years.
Yeah.
And one of our kids went to the local gas station, and the younger worker there said, hey, how'd it go? Oh, we won. And she goes, I don't remember the last time we won a duel, or something. So he'd say that story, but
that's pretty cool that you're able just right off the bat. I mean, it wasn't even about really winning, but you're able to drum enough energy, in the school to be able to have that many kids go out for the sport. So you have a full roster. Now you just mentioned the duel that you talk about that was, they hadn't lost or you guys hadn't beaten them in years.
Yeah. I haven't won a duel in years. Right.
So what was that experience like then? So what was that like the first kind of like real duel that you had to compete against?
Well, that one wasn't. I think the big one where people started to realize like we had some potential that year, right?
Yeah.
Was we wrestled Waterloo, and Waterloo now is kind of like they're a pretty good team. At that time, they were still pretty good. And my kids, I tell you what, they really, I don't want to say they had no business winning that duel, but the only reason why they won that duel is because they believed it, right? The ability wise, technique wise, condition wise, like my kids were conditioned, right? Nobody's going to out-condition us.
Right.
And I think that at that time, that conference wasn't ready for that. We would come out and punching them out. We didn't know a lot of wrestling, so we better know how to punch, right?
That says something to do about coach. That's for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Hell
yeah. We had a duel and the kids, like, really, we had 3 matches that we shouldn't have won. We did. In fact, we had one kid, CJ Roosh, ended up being a state qualifier for me.
Nice.
And he's wrestling this kid from 189, right? The different weight classes. He's wrestling 189. He's wrestling this kid. And Brad, I kid you not. And one of the things we do not get pinned, right?
Right.
We do your awesome. Arm better get ripped off before you get pinned, right? And it's a mindset. I still know kids are going to get pinned, so I don't want to go crazy there.
Yeah.
But CJ Roosh spent out of the 6 minutes, he spent the first period. I want to say he spent 1:30 on his back. The second period, he spent another 1:30-ish on his back. The score was 12-0, maybe 12-1. Yeah. And in the third period, he's on his back for another minute. He fights. So I can't even add this up. Maybe 4 minutes of that. He fights off and then eventually puts the kid to his back. The kid's so dead tired. We pin him. We end up winning that one. And then we end up winning the duel. And really it was like, that was the point where kids started to believe. They started to believe. And then the fans started. And I told the kids, I said, you have to wrestle this gym. It's really cool in Cambridge. There's 2 gyms and one of them is a smaller gym.
Yeah.
I like it. We wrestled in the pit. In the pit, we would have full, right? I remember one time we were wrestling Marshall a couple years later when us and Marshall became these big rivalries. Yeah. And I'm coaching and there's fans standing literally right next to me because there's no other room for them. And it's just loud. And, but
nice.
I told the kids, I said, you have to put out a product that people want to come see.
Yeah.
And then they're like, hey, we should probably put you in our big gym. I'm like, no way. We'll cram them in. We'll figure out where we'll hang from the rafters.
Because people talk about that and they'll want to come back every time. Yeah,
absolutely.
Because that reminds me actually of the Appleton West Gym. They have that balcony. So the wrestlers, the coaches are down on the basketball floor, but there's the balcony up above where everybody sits, all concrete seats, and it's literally all the fans are looking down on the mat. And I walked into that gym, I was like, this is pretty cool right here. Like this is something where if we could get an event together, like just a duel right here, and you get like 150 people up on top. Yeah. For sure. So that's a great environment. And now not only did you create a great environment, but you're creating, a great team, just the kids are coming together. Like you said, with what we said on his back for like 4 minutes and 4.5 minutes.
Right.
And then he pins the kid, so, I mean, that's crazy. So you've created this dynamic. And as you're going through that first season, was there, what was the kind of, because now you're telling me about ties and stuff. So what was it like to qualify for state as a team? Like, how did that all go for you guys?
Well, that was the thing. We never qualified for state as a team, right? So in my 7 years there, we qualified for, I want to say we qualified for regionals 4 or 5 times. I mean, I think after my second, gosh, I can't even do that. Oh, hey, everybody. That's my
tornado's coming.
Yep. Sorry, everybody. We got a tornado warning going on here, so I should probably know.
That is crazy. It's February, and you're getting tornado warnings.
Yeah, I keep seeing the thunder going on here. No, so my goal, and maybe this quickly transitions us to, the end of my career, because it's all kind of together, but it's like so many great stories. I got to, you talk about story. I'll tell this one. Corey, well, I'll go back. Heart, I think if someone wants to be a good coach, it takes heart, passion, and it takes energy, right? Belief and belief in kids, right? I don't claim to be. In fact, there's many times where I think I kind of got out coached, this and that, and I was learning that process of it, right? I was learning how to peak kids at the right time. I think I don't want to say I cost my kid a state title, but I think I got out coached. I had a kid that made the final. Robert Daggett made the finals twice. I think his second time I got out coached. You know what I mean? All these things that you learn, but that's what I was going to develop, right? Technique. And, but if you believe in kids and you have passion for the sport and you have energy, people feed off that and they want to be around it, which I think is, really why we were able to be successful, because the kids did. I had awesome kids. Right. Yeah. And they just believed, right. They just believed in what we were doing. And we had a lot of fun, and we had this, we had the statement that, and I believed it. I said, once a Cambridge wrestler, always a Cambridge wrestler, and like the kids would always come back, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And I can't remember. Oh, I got to tell this story real quick. This kind of puts the two in together. So Corey Stead, he'll probably listen to this, and his kid now wrestles. And he was like he was one of my first state, he was my first state medalist. Right. And I got to him as a junior. Nice. And I think I didn't do anything for Corey other than just bleed belief into him. Right.
Sure.
I just believed in him more than he believed in himself. And eventually he got the confidence and ended up he was a 6th place medalist. And And my first year, so he didn't qualify his first year, but his second year he did. And my first year, it was kind of around this time. It was like before conference. I want to do something different. So we took the kids to the pool down to the elementary school. And Corey Stenjum's this farmer, and he has like negative 8% body fat, right? He's just, skinny as a bone. And he looks at me and he goes, well, I take him to the deep end. I'm like, all right, everybody jump in. We're going to tread water for 5 minutes, kind of get warmed up. And Corey Stenjum looks at me and goes, Coach, I can't swim. And I look at him thinking, these guys, he's 5 years younger than me or whatever it is, 6 years. Yeah. I think he's pulling my leg and I go, shut up. I go, get in the water. Well, he's so like, Corey, run through that wall. Corey, do this. He just looks at me and he jumps in the water and he sinks to the bottom like a stone, right? Down he goes. I'm like, so we jump in, or I can't remember what happened. If and we came back up. I'm like, Corey, and he goes, Coach, I told you I couldn't swim. I was like,
everybody, Corey's fine. Corey's okay.
But transition to that to I can't remember what year. Oh, as far as we did like, and Brad, I believe this, and I'm not a woulda, shoulda, coulda guy, right? But and we'll kind of talk about why I got into coaching, and maybe that's the transition to it. But I really did believe that we had and how do I say this the right way? I knew that had I been able to continue at a level of what I was doing, we would have been I can't say 2 years, 3 years, but we would have been a state qualifier program. We would have been a state level pro. We would have been hitting the top. And I had a great coaching staff. I had Steve Wethel, I had Derek Benthausen. These guys were just they were nothing for the reason why I got out of coaching. I can talk about what we go here, but we really did believe, and we qualified for team sectionals 4-5 times.
Nice.
At that particular time, we weren't. So Wrightstown was D3. It's just kind of ironic that the nemesis to us, one of the nemesis to us, was Wrightstown. Right? We would go to team sectionals, and I can't remember if we wrestled. I think we only wrestled them once, but they were always there. But I tell you what an honor! Okay. What an honor in the sectional final to square off, and over is Bill and Matt Verbatim across from the mat from you, and my goal was to beat them, right? And we didn't, but it was still kind of fun though. We had a time where we were wrestling. I think we only won one match, right? But my kid, same thing. My kids battled. They all battled, and I was so like I'm getting you can't see my eyes, but I'm getting like all the. Right. They knew they were wrestling for me. I'm like, don't wrestle for me, wrestle for me. They're like, no, coach, and we lost, 12 matches. But every kid went out there and just fought. And there was one time, the refs didn't cost us it, but there were 2 particular matches where, the ref basically, one time we had a chest crusher in, and Chris Wagner's got a chest crusher, and because he didn't turn his hips the other way, the ref gets flat on his back. He's stuck. Yeah. And the ref looks and he goes, he's not pinned because he didn't turn around. I'm like, you freaking jag, man. Yeah, it was. And I'm yelling. I kid you not, Brad, I'm about ready to get kicked out of this because I'm yelling at this guy. He's like he's literally, he had this cocky smugness to him and almost looking at me like,
Seen it. Yep.
And I'm yelling. I'm about ready to get, and all of a sudden I hear Bill, my old coach. I'm sorry, not old. My still coach who's, Matt Verbatim, I can tell you this. I'm about ready to wrestle them in team sectionals. We won our first ever regional title, and I didn't know how to coach from there, right? I didn't know what do I do, right? How do I get guys ready for Tuesday and Saturday? Matt's about ready to wrestle us, and he's giving me advice on, hey, you got to do this. You got to get mentally, you got to talk about this, right? That's how good of a guy Matt is. And I'm yelling at this ref. Yeah. I'm about ready to get kicked out, and all I hear from across the way is in his coaching voice, he yells over. Bill always called me Stevie, right? It was always, when I wrestled, it was always Stevie. He goes, Stevie, you got to settle down. Like he's like, the whole gym hears him coaching to me. And it wasn't like, Steve, shut your mouth. Hey, it was Stevie, you got to relax a little bit and let this go. It was down. Yep. It was one of the coolest. It was just, anyway, but nice. So we were kind of going from there. And then, like I said, we had a good thing going. We really did. And there's still parts of me that regret walking away, but there's everything happens for a reason, right?
Well, you built a culture, and I think that's something that it's hard to do. And it's not to say it's if one team doesn't do it, it's not necessarily as a coach's fault. And sometimes it's just, you're dealing with demographics. You got kids that they're able to go out for the sport, so they go out for it. And that's what they're there for, is to, and so I think a coach can kind of smell that. And if it's not something that they want to do, you get away from it. But you also wound up being in a program that you said, like you said, you want to be able to build something. And you get, it's kind of great that you were able to start with the great foundation the way that you did, to have some of the kids that had some veterancy veterancy. Is that a word? Probably not, but I'm going to use it anyways. But to kind of be an anchor for the younger group, because you said they're like 7 and be able to kind of go with that. That's pretty special to be able to have, I would say, something you built, that you were able to put together, and great coaching staff. You got to have that as well. So with that environment and with the way that it was going, you're kind of talking about how the end came. So how come you have all that cohesiveness? What happened?
It was talking about it, I remember you talked about numbers of kids. Think about it. Cambridge at that time had about 250 kids. There was one year we had 33 kids in the program, right? 33.
Yeah, right.
Typically we had about 25, 26, so it was good. So, I think it kind of goes with this, is that my career kind of started to widen out, and it was all self-inflicted. At that particular time, I burned myself out, and not because I overworked or anything like that. It was more mental. Like I could not separate wrestling from life. And everything was about, like, we would win and I would feel good for about 32 minutes. And then as soon as it was constant worry, I had problems with anxiety back then, and just constantly worried. And about, if a kid left, if a kid had terrible practice, I was worried all night. Like, oh, how's he doing? What's the, and I was just, I couldn't shut my brain off. I would, if we had to wrestle a good duel, I would be up at 3:00 in the morning still with papers all over the floor of possibilities that teams could do, analyzing. What's that?
That could have happened?
Yeah, like, what if they do this? So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I couldn't shut my brain off. But here's the bad part, Brad. If we were wrestling a team that we knew had no business, I would be doing the same thing. And I just couldn't shut it off. And and I'll tell you, and another thing was that when I was with my kids and I was with my wife, I wasn't with my kids and I wasn't. Does that make sense? I was with them in body, but I was somewhere else.
You were there, but you were not there.
Yep. And that was Wayne. My wife is fantastic, and she was very, but that's Wayne. And I'll tell you, this is, I learned this later on, but Grayson Clark, who we had in our podcast, he gave the best advice ever. He puts it, what I learned eventually, he put the best that I've ever heard when we had him on. So what advice you got for young kids? And he said, be where your feet are.
Yeah.
Be where your feet are. And I'm like, dude, that is the best way. He goes, yeah, 4 state titles and all this is good, because it's like, it's the people, it's this. And I'm like, and here's the thing is that I talked about it. I find I got one coach that I'm thinking of in particular. And if he hears this, he'll know exactly. Cause I said, I'm going to give you unsolicited advice, cause you remind me a lot of me. He's younger. He's probably, I don't even know his age, right? He's late 20s or 30s. And I said, I'm going to give you unsolicited advice. And I go, and you're going to take it. And I was kind of just talking about,
that's awesome.
Hey, you're passionate, you're this, but you got to figure out how to separate it. You got to, take your wife out on dates. You got to do this. You got to, and even I think I can give young coaches that. And I think it was, I kind of knew it was done. I was done when I was already kind of like mentally like there, but what set me over is I'm not saying what I did was right or not, or I'm not blaming, but I had an interaction with one of my wrestlers, and the parent didn't like how I had done it. Yeah. And and now it didn't hurt, Brad, but this parent took their finger and they jabbed it into my chest. And I still, it was right here. It did, like I said, it didn't hurt, but I can still feel it.
Feel it. Yeah, right? For sure.
And I remember at that particular moment, I go, yep. I knew I was at that moment. I knew I was walking away. So
there's, I've had some or heard some instances of, it's crazy how, especially when you're a coach that puts your all into it, like, kind of hearing about you, that's exactly how it sounds. And knowing that there are other guys that are out there that have that, there are parents that don't see the value behind what you're giving these kids. Because you hear about it and you see it in posts all the time that you want these wrestlers to be men on the mat and off the mat, right? What men or women, it doesn't matter which gender. It's just then you have the certain parent that they think that they're entitled to certain things and that their opinion matters and that they're angry and you need to listen at that moment. And, being told, especially that you don't have my, child's best interest at heart. And that's all you're putting into it is your heart,
right.
That's rough. That's hard.
And with that being said, they had their kids' best, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I'm not. I maybe I should have said that. Maybe I shouldn't have. But I'm not blaming that parent. What I'm saying is that I wasn't necessarily happy with how, even myself, as I reflect back on it. But I'm also not blaming that parent particularly for being a parent. Right at that particular moment, they were upset. They thought I wronged their kid, and I could. Brad, you have kids, right?
Yeah, I
could only imagine if somebody wrongs my kid. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're gonna react a certain way. But yeah, that was kind of it. And then I didn't know if you had kind of a wrap up question with Cambridge, but that's kind of as far as a head coach coaching. Yeah, that's kind of where
it fizzled out for you. Well, that makes sense, especially like I said, and that's kind of where I was coming from with when you put your heart into it and you really have a vested interest in these kids and what they're doing, and then just to kind of understand that, well, maybe it really isn't, this is not what I got into it for. This is not why I was doing it. So then you kind of lose the luster of it. And so you're done. So when the coaching ended, when you kind of sat down and were like, you obviously you had teaching. So it's not like you didn't have anything going on, but you start teaching and because now we're going to start diving into the podcasting a little bit.
Right.
You're living life for a little while, right? This podcast thing didn't pop up right away, did it?
No. Yeah. I coached a few, I did some like help it, help it out. I helped out with Fort for here. And I coached at the middle school as the head middle school coach for a little while and enjoy all aspects of it. I would go to a few times, coaches would still ask me, hey, can you come up and wrestle with this kid or go wrestle with this kid? And I,
nice.
Still young enough and to do all those kind of things. And then really it kind of, and I'll bring Shane Sparks into it, is that Shane Sparks did an amazing thing with Badger State Wrestling, right? And I don't know when he stopped doing that, but when he left a huge void, right? Just because, and when I started thinking, and I'm like, and I want people to hear this, I had no urge to be, I have no urge to become Shane Sparks. Shane Sparks is his own entity, but there was a void that I wanted to try to fill, right? I had this urge of, man, I want to go out and broadcast matches. I just love wrestling.
Yeah.
And yeah, it sure did. You can only imagine, Brad, me with technology. It's like, I'm going to go do this. And then things don't work. When people speak to me about, plug this USB cord into this gigabyte and this gigabyte and all this it's like
Spanish.
It's so like, all I heard was turn the computer on and I have to be walked through step by step. And so I kept trying to do it and just fail in misery. I had a couple successful ones. I did a Wrightstown Luxembourg match, but I had Tony Schaaf's help in setting it all up, like all these things. And then the cool thing was, and I'm forever in his debt, is Tom McGarvey from the guy that used to run or founder of Wisconsin Wrestling, right?
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah. Yep.
So he and I would talk, and sometimes he would send me out under his name, like, hey, go to broadcast this. And then I would, and it would suck and I wouldn't do it right. And I felt so bad. And then I want to say it must've been 5 years ago now, if you do the math with all, it's a long time span, but he goes, hey, there's this guy and he just started a podcast. And this guy was Teague, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, I should introduce you. And then he gave me his number and I reached out and Teague and I kind of connected. And then, there's a story in there, right?
Yeah.
But that was, and it was right from the get go. It was a great partnership because Teague, Teague is like Teague, right? I mean,
Teague is the brain. He's
that
the brain,
guy
man.
Is unbelievable, right? and he the knowledge, right? And the technology, and then the knowledge, and then I don't know what I provide to the group, but it's
Stop being self-deprecating. Stop it.
I'm glad that he did. So he did the podcast a year before I joined him.
Okay.
And then and then we joined him, and it's a great partnership. He's a little bit younger. I'm a little bit older, right? I think we give each other. It's
a balance.
Right. Yeah. He. Oh, go ahead.
What was the first episode you did with him?
The first episode we did was so this is June now, right? So state has already happened.
Yeah.
2020, I think it was. And it was June, and we did a recap of the state tournament.
Nice.
And we recorded it once, and we got done. We're like, that sucked. And then we recorded it again the next day. And it's so funny because and then we posted on the forum on Wisconsin Wrestling that, we just did a recap, and someone puts in the comments and said, wasn't that in February? And we're like, you're thinking you're going to get, hey, people are going to be appreciative. And someone goes, well, that's 4 months late, whatever. But
there's always that dude out there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So as you were going through the years here with Teague, because it's interesting. I think my first interview I did was in like 2019. It was super basic.
Right, I'm going right behind your head there that I see it says established 2019. So
2019.
There it is.
2019. It's right there. Beep, beep.
I love that banner behind you, by the way. That's sweet.
See, I got to make it. We'll talk about that later. But I started with just a phone recording next to my laptop because I didn't understand software. I didn't understand any of it. Right. And it's kind of like you guys, like I was by myself, but I was just interviewing people, just kind of going with the flow. And I think I interviewed one person and talked about something. It was late. And someone made the same kind of comment. Like, hey, didn't they do that? Like, well, so what? I want to talk about it now. Like, I didn't get to talk to him then, So just kind of the process of going through it. What were you kind of thinking as you're starting out? You're talking wrestling, something you love. You didn't have the stress of how to go coach or compete. So you're able to kind of do this thing within the sport. And I'll ask just like I ask an athlete, were you ever like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I did a couple episodes. I'm good. Or was it like, this is awesome. I want to do this forever.
I still feel that way. Like, I think Teague, so I didn't realize this, but Teague, when I called Teague, he was thinking about not doing the podcast anymore. Right. He was a year into it, and he was kind of getting that little bit of like, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he'll tell you that he goes, if I didn't call him, it might not exist. Right. So, I mean,
it would be done. Yeah.
Yeah. If I give him anything, I do give energy. We'll just say that. Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
you do.
You do. But I can't say, I mean, I get tired, right? I mean, sometimes it's, I'll be gone Friday and I'll ref all day on Saturday. And then I'm going over notes, doing podcast, cause it takes to
time.
do a recap notes. It's probably anywhere between 3 to 5 hours, depending on, if you want to do a good job, more on the 5 hours. Right. And sometimes it's like, man, I'm a little tired, but as soon as Teague says, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to it, as soon as actually before that off camera, it's always, this is our little, like, he goes, well, let's give it the old college try. He says that every single time before he record. Yep. And as soon as he says that, it's like, yep, let's go.
It's go time.
It's go
That's
time.
Awesome.
Yep. Yeah.
So how did you feel that dynamic felt right away with that first episode? Because here's the thing, Steve, is you don't give yourself enough credit. Okay. You're like I said, you're very self-deprecating, and I understand where you're coming from, but did you find yourself kind of like, did you find a sweet spot? Do you think what do you think is your sweet spot with this podcasting thing? I don't know if I can find my own other than just liking talking to people, but what do you think? Is it putting the numbers together? Is it just kind of, is it talking with what do you think your sweet spot is?
I don't, you're right. I don't give myself a lot of credit in much.
You don't.
The only thing that I do say that I am good at, and I'll tell people, in school and this, is that I'm good at finding the strengths of other people and telling them about it. Right.
Okay.
And I fill in the gaps. I don't have to be the leader. But if I walk into a situation and I need to lead, I will. I don't want to be, but I will. Right. And, if I need to be like, I'll walk into situations, I'm like, oh, this room needs energy. Well, I'm going to figure that out. I'm going to walk into a room. I can walk into a room and realize that many of those areas are already being covered. I have no problem taking a step back and being like, this is covered. It's just, and I would say, what I bring the podcast to Teague is I fill in, there's a, I said this to Teague once, but you got to be careful because it's Rocky and Adrian, right? So, Rocky says to Adrian, he's like, I think it's Paul. He says to Rocky, what do you like her so much? And he goes, well, I got gaps and she got gaps, and when we're together, we got no gaps, right? That's a famous word by Rocky.
It's a good way to put it.
What? Say again?
It's a good way to put it.
I think that's what I provide is a Teague's skill. I sometimes feel guilty because he does so many, like he does we record and then he kind of does the editing, gets the podcast out, and he does all the setups in there. And sometimes I feel like, gosh, I want to do more, but I don't. Teague has never expressed that he doesn't. Like, Steve, I want you to do it. It's like I tell him, it's like that's what he's good at. That's what he's gifted at, right? So I would think that's what I bring.
Going to let those pieces fall together. As you've been doing it through the years, you're like, okay, well, you're good at this, and you let the good times roll. It's fun listening to you guys because you do put so much information together. So like you said, 3 to 5 hours worth of work. I mean, and then being able to go out and ref. I mean, you're still in it. You're still loving the sport. You're still able to be around it and not exactly, the environment in ways that you would probably not want to be around it. So you're able to take the most of every situation in the sport. We love listening to you. Christina listens to you. I know Liam once in a while throws up a couple of the episodes and listens to them. So, I mean, you guys carry a certain amount of value that comes with what you're doing. So we all appreciate it. So that's for sure. We definitely want to make sure that you guys keep going. So as long as I'm on, I'm going to keep having you guys on.
Oh, awesome.
And now that we've had part 2 and we've completed your story, now we can have Teague back on, and we can have you, Teague, me, Zach, and we can do the whole big, just mind blown type episode. Well, so what are you looking forward to most? I guess with this season, you guys have done a lot. I mean, I got sectional previews you guys did. I mean, it's insane with what you guys have put together information. What are you looking together? What is it as just you, not together, but what are you looking forward to this year to cap the year off? Is there something special you're waiting for? Is there a matchup you're looking for that could be happening in Wisconsin that you're thinking about that you want to see?
Well, yeah, you know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see Kakana Luxembourg duel it out on the that's what I'd really like to see, right?
Me too.
Yeah, no kidding. No, I mean, I'm looking forward to, I mean, hypothetically it's got to happen, but I'm going to Fenimore. Teague's going up to they're splitting up the band, right? Teague, but I'm excited. Teague's going up to the nominee, and I just proximity wise with me teaching and trying to get back, I can't go with him, so he's going up there, and I'm actually going with Jake, and we're doing Fenimore.
Nice.
Well, it's at Fenimore, right? I mean, but think of those teams. It's going to be either Fenimore Aquinas or Iowa Grant Aquinas, and then the winner. It's like those.
Someone
three
was
teams.
Breaking that down.
Yeah. That's going to be fun. I don't know if you know this or not, but with the 4 of us are doing a on Wednesday night before state at the Kohl Center. We're doing like a live show. I don't know. I don't know if I'm
sounds like an idea I threw out there at some point in time. That's
did you really? Shoot, I don't know if I was supposed to say that out loud or not. I think it's public knowledge.
It doesn't matter. I wanted to do it at a bar. I didn't want to do it in a hotel room or anything like that.
So. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
things like that. But I don't know. It's like Teague and I are always trying to figure out. We know what we do is good, right? I'm not trying to, but we know what we do is good, and know it provides a value to people because people listen, right? And I think, we our favorite thing is when people just come up and say, "Hey, thank you for mentioning me." I mean, we talk about we'll mention kids that. Are 20 and 20, right? They don't have to be the super studs, and we try to really
many as you can.
Kids.
Yep.
And that's awesome, right? And so Teague and I are always trying to figure out how to make we go in seasons, right? So after team state, that's the end of a season.
Yep.
And then we try to figure out okay, how are we going to get better? What can we do to improve? And I think
here's a question: have you guys ever thought about trying to cover state freestyle and Greco stuff?
We talk about it. Yep. I have learned this in my short time in business. It's that, it's you find a niche and you fill it, right? I think where organizations, there's a book by Jim Collins called Good to Great. And it said that, what good companies do is they find their niche and then they stay within that niche. Right. And then where companies fail is, they start having success and then they start doing, and then as soon as that happens, now you break down, the leadership breaks down. So our niche is high school wrestling in the state of Wisconsin, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And if we stay there and not try to explain, people are always asking us, can you do this? Can you go do this? And as soon as we start to do that, then it, oh, hey, you guys should cover college. Yeah, that's true. But we'll, So freestyle. These are all things that we want to start being able to do. And then, people got to realize too that Teague and I both have full-time jobs. You know what I mean? It's like, and
we don't care. We want information. We want shows.
That's true. But to be honest with you, I wish this was my full, right? I mean, because it's fun. I just love looking at brackets. I wish I had Teague's memory, because I can look at a bracket and then turn it off and go, wait, who was I looking at again? But I love looking at it.
That guy's memory is insane. So it's kind of crazy, especially knowing the dynamic that you guys have, that there's the amount of information that he's able to get, but you still get a decent amount of information. So, I mean, you guys still compile, like, and just you talking about just naming a kid that's 20 and 20 or whoever it is, the amount that you guys dig, it's not just the information that you're bringing to us, but how much you dig into these teams, because you guys have relationships with the coaches. You guys have relationships with some of these parents that maybe it's their second kid coming up and you actually saw their older child come up through wrestling, things like that. So you guys have put in a lot of time in gyms. You guys have put a lot of time in just doing the podcast and looking on track wrestling or, wherever you can to get information and contacting coaches. So as long as you guys are doing it, I think it's only going to be a great thing for Wisconsin and Wisconsin wrestling. So you guys better not quit. You two specifically.
I have no, I always go by, like, I'm not going to say I'm going to do it forever. As long as people want what we do and I enjoy doing it, I'm going to do it, because I'd hate to keep doing something that people don't. You know what I mean? That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's a fear.
That's my fear. That's kind of like when I was the head coach, even though this wasn't the case. But when I'm like, wait, they don't want, and I interpreted too much. But when they don't want me anymore, I'm gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know the movie. You ever see the movie Legend of Bagger Vance?
Yes, a couple times. Yeah.
I love scenes from movies, and one of my favorite scene ever was when the guy's winning. He hits his last putt and he wins it.
Yep.
And Will Smith is walking down the beach away from the situation, right? And basically the symbolism is that he wasn't needed anymore, so that's why he's gone, right? And gosh, it's like I want to be part of. That's kind of why I got into reffing, because I probably wouldn't have, but there's such a need for it, right? If I'm not, and I'm studying, I try to get better. I'm only in my second year of varsity. I'm always trying to get better. But if there ends up being a whole bunch of refs that are better than me, and I'm not and I'm lowering the bar for refereeing, I'm going to get out of it, right? I don't want to be that guy that's holding up reffing, but I enjoy it. I mean, I think I'm doing an okay job. I'm trying to get better and better. I'm always asking Ryan McGuire and Neil Stake, like, hey, can you guys come watch me? I want to get better. Hey, bring a notepad and tell me, right? And
for sure.
And I just had a situation. You were talking about dads and stuff. And here I was reffing a youth tournament, and there's this dad, and he's just yelling at his kid, get up. Like the kid's got, here's what I want to do to a youth parent that yells at their kid to get up. I want to throw them down, not throw them. I want to put them down on the mat, get me on top of them, and have me get a pry bar out. And I'm going to start yelling in the ear, get up, get up. And here's the funny thing, and this is where I don't stick my nose in too much business, but I'm going to try to make an impact. And this kid was wrestling hard. He really wrestled good. He wrestled, he lost like by 8 or something, but he wrestled hard the whole time. And I raised his hand. I'm sorry, not raise his hand. Raise the other kid's hand. I said, "Great job." And I put my arm around the scruff of this kid's neck, and I walked to the edge of the mat, walked him off the mat, and I said, "Buddy, you wrestled so hard that match. Great job. I'm really proud of you." And I looked right at the dad, right in the eyes. And the dad just shut his mouth, put his arm around his son, and walked away. And I hope he got the message.
Yeah. Tell us you're a loud parent without telling us you're a loud parent. You basically told him he was a loud parent without telling him.
That's right.
Hey, I've been guilty of it too. I mean, Liam's 15 now, so going to be 16. I've had plenty of moments when he was younger where I was kind of probably a little out of hand, but then as you grow, hopefully that guy learned from that, hopefully. True. And that's again, you have this ability to create a culture. Like, I mean, just doing that mat side and not creating a scene and not having to say something directly is just eye contact with a statement to the child. Good to go. You're creating a culture every time you go somewhere, and again, the podcast and the show that you guys do, it creates a culture. People keep wondering about, there's not enough banter. I was just reading that today. There's not enough banter on the forum, stuff like that. People are able to kind of get out and listen to things, like your podcast, our podcast, and talk about things and be able to kind of, so sometimes it gets put somewhere else. It's not always on the forum, but at the same time, I don't think a lot of those people would have information without you guys. So we appreciate everything that you guys do, you and Teague, but especially you, because this show's been about you, and I'm going to get out of your hair so that way you survive a tornado that could be possibly coming your way.
I was going to tell you that I was going to interrupt you, but you were talking. There was hail hitting the window about 5 minutes ago.
You got to get home. You got to get the hell out of school. You got to get going. But again, Steve, we appreciate you coming back on. Hey, no technical difficulties, right? We're good. We had a smooth show, right? So has there been you've had a lot of shows that I've seen that didn't get cut off, but have there, this is just kind of a weird question. Has there ever been a show that you guys have done where you saved the day?
You mean like technology-wise?
Technically, yeah.
Oh, technology-wise?
Yeah.
No. Teague had me do I cannot remember who it was, but he couldn't come. Yeah. And I had to record the podcast. Yeah. Oh, Brad, I was shicing my pants, man. I was like, oh, it was so bad.
That's fun.
But
that's fun.
It was fun. We didn't do that anymore.
Well, I hope I get to see you guys down at State. I know. Are you guys do you guys go to Team State? Do you guys do something down there?
Yeah, we did the broadcast last time. So we were
that's right. Yeah.
Yep. So I did. I think I did D3 and he did he do D2 and then Joe did D1.
Okay. So, nice. Okay. Again, I know what you guys do, but a lot of times I like to ask so that everybody else knows. But so it'll be good to see you guys down there. We'll be paying attention to what you guys have coming up with sectionals and everything like that. But guys, check these guys out. Wisconsin Wrestler Podcast. They are on Rockfin. They are also on social media. When you guys do your live stuff, you can see them on Facebook.
Yep.
They're on social media everywhere. They're on Instagram. They're on Twitter. They're on Facebook. Are you guys on TikTok?
Well, that's a good. So I don't know anything about TikTok, but my daughters are going to start a TikTok account for us. So be watching for that. They're going to make the content, and it's kind of funny because they're nervous because I told Teague that they want to do it. He's like, yeah, and I said, Teague, I want you to talk to them though, and he's like, yeah, I'll talk to them. The first 3 have to be approved by me, and this and that. And if you're going to start this, there's no, we're not joking around about it. You're putting out content like once or twice a week. They're all like. We got to talk to Teague. They're all nervous. They're like, oh my gosh, So yeah, we'll be starting a TikTok account here sometime soon. So
good. You guys can check. There's other episodes that they have out on YouTube. Just like on here, go check them out. Wisconsin Wrestler Podcast. But hey, this has been Steve Leurquin, Wisconsin Wrestler Podcast guy. Wisconsin wrestling, I would say staple. So if you guys get the chance, tune into those guys, pay attention to what they're talking about, because they know everything about Wisconsin wrestling. So again, thank you, Steve. Hats off. We're going to talk for just a second, but we're going to let the folks go here. So you guys have a good night. This has been the Vision Quest Podcast. Peace.
All of our episodes are brought to you by Appleton Tattoo, located at 117 South Appleton Street in Appleton, Wisconsin, right off the main drag on College Avenue. You can't miss them. I've had some work done. I have a Celtic cross that covers my back that was done by Jason. We're not done yet. Jason Winans and crew, the artists that he have there, those guys are the best in the Fox Valley. They are definitely one to go to if it's something that you've just been kind of throwing around. They'll make you feel comfortable. It's a very clean environment, very nice crew, and very willing to get done whatever you need done when you need it done. You can message them on Facebook. I know they're on Facebook. You can give them a call at 920-604-8289 and get in touch with Jason Winans and crew at Appleton Tattoo, located again in Appleton, Wisconsin at 117 South Appleton Street, right in Appleton. Very flexible hours, great crew, clean environment again. I would not send you anywhere else except for these guys. Appleton Tattoo.